So can you talk to me a bit about your experience as a young woman of colour?
So my family immigrated from India when I was 18, 20 months old, and we moved to Southampton, which is a city not too far from London, and I was very lucky to actually grow up in a very diverse community. At the time, my primary school didn't seem very diverse, but I quickly learned that it was when I moved to Devon. I moved when I just turned 11, and funnily enough, that was more of a culture shock to me than when I moved to the country because I was so young. My parents didn't just have to kind of navigate the whole ordeal of moving house and moving down to a different part of the country. We also had to think about how isolated are we going to be in terms of like Indian community, and whether my brother and I are going to be comfortable in a school that is predominantly white, and whether we'll be able to make friends. And that was another worry that they had to think about, and it's just another kind of example of how it's small things that a lot of people won't even think about that people of colour have to kind of experience throughout their lives.
So having moved to Devon, clearly you say there's a difference between the diversity in Devon versus somewhere like Southampton. So what would you pinpoint as some examples of Devon-specific racism?
So a specific example of racism that I was only recently made aware of was the case of Simeon Francis, who was arrested by police in Turkey in 2019, and it was reported that they used excessive force on him, and he actually died in police custody this year after a second arrest. And it's stories like that that never get out, and they won't get the same kind of attention that, for example, George Floyd received. And it's very disturbing to think that things like this are going on amongst us, and even people within like the POC community, they won't know. And I think it just proves that we really need campaigns like this to raise awareness about what is going on and what can be done to kind of cancel it out.
So that's an example of a very tragic and very dramatic act of racism. Is there any microaggressions that you could talk about that you personally have experienced or know others to experience?
Well, personally, I think micro is something that we need to emphasize with microaggressions. They're very small things that a lot of people can easily shake off as me being hypersensitive, but they can be just as damaging. For example, like I'll be in a supermarket and someone will come up to me and be like, "So where are you from?" And I'll be like, "Well, I live on the other side of Austria." And they'll be like, "No, but where are you really from?" I'm like, "Well, I moved from Southampton." And they're like, "No, but like, where did you come from?" And it's small things like that that kind of make you feel out of place and like you don't belong here and that you're a foreigner, which I am. But it's not done with a positive intention. Another thing would be I'm quite often mixed up with my friends and peers of other ethnicities. So I'll be mixed with like a Filipino student or a student from Cyprus, and it can almost feel like people are reducing people of colour into just one group without actually acknowledging all of the diversity that exists within the POC community. So it's very small things like that that can make a difference to someone's self-confidence and how comfortable they are around other people.